Former President Donald Trump sent shockwaves through the U.S. Canada trade relationship with a bold statement. He declared that the United States doesn't need Canadian cars, oil, gas, lumber, or aluminum. This statement, made at the World Economic Forum in Davos, is consistent with his protectionist agenda. Trump has long advocated for policies that prioritize American production and reduce reliance on foreign imports. He views trade as a zero-sum game, where one country wins at the expense of another. Trump's protectionist stance is rooted in his belief that the U.S. has been taken advantage of in trade deals. He often points to the trade deficit as evidence of this. The trade deficit is the difference between a country's imports and exports. Trump argues that reducing the trade deficit will bring back manufacturing jobs to the U.S. and strengthen the economy. However, economists debate the validity of this claim. Canada is a critical trading partner for the United States. It is America's second-largest trading partner after Mexico. The two countries share a long and integrated history of trade. Goods and services flow freely across the border, supporting millions of jobs on both sides. Trump's statement has raised concerns about the future of this vital economic relationship. The integrated nature of the U.S. Canada trade relationship is evident in various sectors. The auto industry, for example, relies on a complex supply chain that crosses the border multiple times. Parts manufactured in Canada are assembled into vehicles in the U.S. and vice versa. Disrupting this flow of goods could have significant consequences for both economies. The automotive industry stands as a prime example of the interconnectedness between the U.S. and Canadian economies. For decades, the two nations have collaborated in this sector, building a complex web of manufacturing and supply chains. Components manufactured in one country often find their way into vehicles assembled in the other. This integration has resulted in a highly efficient and competitive industry that benefits both nations. Trump's suggestion that the U.S. doesn't need Canadian cars ignores this deep integration. Imposing tariffs or trade barriers on Canadian auto imports would send shockwaves through the industry. U.S. automakers rely heavily on Canadian-made parts, and any disruption in the supply chain could lead to production delays, increased costs, and ultimately, higher prices for American consumers. Similarly, the energy sector reveals a critical interdependence between the two North American neighbors. Canada is a major supplier of oil and gas to the United States, particularly to the northern states that rely on Canadian pipelines. This energy trade is vital for meeting America's energy needs and ensuring stable prices. Trump's assertion that the U.S. doesn't need Canadian oil contradicts the reality of energy demand. While the U.S. has made strides in domestic oil production, it still relies on imports to meet its energy needs fully. Cutting off Canadian oil imports would force the U.S. to seek alternative sources, potentially from less stable or more expensive suppliers. This could lead to higher energy prices for American businesses and consumers. The potential economic fallout from Trump's statement is a source of significant concern for both the U.S. and Canada. While the exact impact remains uncertain, experts warn of potential job losses, price hikes, and overall economic slowdown. The integrated nature of the two economies magnifies the potential consequences. For the U.S., disrupting trade with Canada could lead to higher prices for consumers on a range of goods, from automobiles and aluminum products to lumber used in construction. The auto industry in particular could face significant challenges as supply chains are disrupted, potentially leading to production delays and job losses in manufacturing hubs across the Midwest. Canada, being more reliant on trade with the U.S., faces potentially more significant economic risks. The Canadian economy relies heavily on exports to the U.S., and any disruption in this trade flow could have a ripple effect throughout the country. Industries such as lumber, energy, and manufacturing, which rely heavily on the U.S. market, could suffer job losses and reduce profits. The potential for a trade war between the two countries also looms large. If Trump follows through on his threat to impose tariffs on Canadian imports, Canada is likely to retaliate with tariffs of its own. This tit-for-tat escalation could spiral out of control, harming both economies and creating uncertainty in global markets. Canada has responded to Trump's statements with a mix of caution and resolve. While acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, Canadian leaders have emphasized the importance of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship and expressed a desire for a negotiated solution. However, they have also made it clear that Canada will not back down from protecting its interests. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has walked a fine line, seeking to avoid escalating tensions while also standing firm against what Canada perceives as unfair trade practices. He is engaged in diplomatic efforts, reaching out to U.S. lawmakers and industry leaders to highlight the mutually beneficial nature of the U.S. Canada trade relationship. The goal is to build support for maintaining strong economic ties. At the same time, Canada has prepared for the possibility of a trade war. The government has published a list of potential retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, should Trump follow through on his threats. These tariffs target products from states that are politically important to Trump, aiming to exert pressure on the U.S. administration to reconsider its stance. Canada's response highlights the delicate balance it must strike. On the one hand, it seeks to preserve a trade relationship that is vital to its economic well-being. On the other hand, Canada is unwilling to be bullied or to accept trade deals that it deems unfair. The coming months will be critical in determining the future of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship and the broader implications for global trade.